Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Panson, and as always, we're joined by Ethan Daffy. And tonight, we are doing episode 3 of Trade Talk. It is, of course, the last episode of Trade Talk before we head into our draft preview episodes, because obviously it is the conclusion of the trade period. It came to a close today, approximately about an hour ago. We're recording this at 8:30 on the Wednesday night, and it obviously just finished at 7:30. But Daff, a lot has happened. It happens every year in the trade period where nothing really happens in the first few days. As soon as it gets to the last day, everything just finds a way to happen. But first things first, mate, how are you? And just give me your thoughts, I guess, for not just our trades, but also all the trades that happened with it, like Bailey Smith, Jack McRae, all these guys that got done, and even James Peatling as well, mate, from the GWS Giants. But your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on in terms of the whole summary of the trade period. It's we both like the theatre, but I thought it almost got to a point this year where you kind of knew every deal was going to get done. It wasn't, well, apart from the Stringer one, obviously the Giants pulled out, and then Stringer's management were kind of forcing on a deal. Like, he does not want to play for Essendon next year. It would have been awkward going back there after what he said or whatever, but that was probably the only one that was in limbo, and that still got done. So yeah, it's in an AFL sense, I guess it was a decent trade period. A few not too big-ish fish. It's not like a Jeremy Cameron kind of deal from a few years ago, or Gary Ablett returning. That's just the two ones that I just looked at on my phone about 10 minutes ago. I saw someone talk about it, but and in Carlton sense, it's I think in terms of our first trade talk preview, I didn't think the results in terms of players coming out and what's coming in was what we first initially thought. So it always keeps you guessing, and I think it's a good thing that our list managers aren't predictable.
I think the last episode we did, I don't think we knew about, I don't think the news came out about, obviously, Carlton trading for Hawthorn's pick 14, so that got done, and then out of nowhere, a few days later, even a day later, I think it was, we then traded our pick 12 and pick 14 and Matty Owies to the Eagles for their pick 3. So there's obviously a lot of things that has happened from the Carlton point of view since our last episode. So there's a few things to touch on, but obviously the first thing we'll touch on, it's on the run sheet because we didn't really want to touch on it, but I feel like we had to. And it's obviously Dan Houston. We were quite optimistic that in the last episode they would still get done. I think Damien Barrett, even a few days ago, even when it looked very likely that he was going to go to Collingwood, he was still quite optimistic that the deal would still get done and he would find his way to Carlton. And that's when I found that I was quite optimistic as well, because I'm like, okay, if he still reckons he's optimistic about Houston getting to Carlton, I would be happy as well. But obviously, he's found a way to get to the Collingwood Football Club in, I think it was a 5-player deal with Atkins, Lukosius, I think it was Richards as well, Noble as well. So there were a lot of players and clubs involved. But I guess, Steph, your initial thoughts, we don't really want to touch on it too much because it's not really got to do with Carlton now, but obviously we have to touch on it because we were so optimistic about it. But do you find it a bit of a blessing in disguise because we didn't have to give up so much? Because if we gave up so much, we might not have been able to get the pick 3 done. So what's your thoughts on us not getting it done? But do you think it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, well, looking in hindsight now, I'm quite happy with what we've done. I know, there's always this mixed kind of thoughts, and I've had these mixed thoughts in terms of, do we go and get a recruit, or do we look into the draft? And I've kind of had that thought process now. Once the trade period's done now, that I'm kind of happy where we're at. In terms of, like, I know it's all we always want a shiny toy in trade period, but I think we've got plenty of handy players that we've brought in the trade period in past years, but also that we've drafted and are in the side and ready to go for next year. But yeah, like we said, it wasn't a need for Houston, but it would have been nice. But he's playing for that team that I won't name.
I think we were both quite like, can North Melbourne just find a way to get it done? But Of course. I mean, everyone's kind of saying like, "Oh, we beat you again. We got down you." So I'm like, well, let's just see what happens next year, mate.
Yeah.
'Cause we're going to get a guy, a pick three. Not going to say exactly who it is, but if we were both in the list management in the draft team within Carlton, I think we both would pick Finn O'Sullivan. So let's hope he's a chance to come to the Carlton Football Club. But Daff, I guess there's just a few key trade moments that obviously happened today, but obviously the past few days as well since the last episode we did, and it was Matt Owies obviously departed the club through the West Coast Eagles trade involving Liam Baker as well. Matt Candy departed just about an hour ago, pretty much 5 minutes ago in the deadline day. Brody Kemp stays. So today it was reported that he actually was a chance to leave to go to the Saints. I know that Sauce was very keen on him. I know that we were asking for St Kilda's pick 8, but I know that they weren't going to get it done, especially with Steven Silvani at the Saints. So he was going to find it very hard to get the deal done from his point of view. But also it was good that Nick Austin said, well, no, he's a required player, so you have to pay up as well. So it's kind of good that they kind of were like, because it probably would be quite intimidating, a guy who's been in there, I guess in the AFL scenario for probably about 10 years in the list management point of view, but also in AFL for about 30 years. So he is obviously quite an intimidating guy, Sauce, but it's good that Nick Austin said, well, no, like we're going to keep Brody Kemp because he obviously is a very required player. And obviously we lose pick 12 and pick 14, and obviously we gain pick 3 as well. But Daff, your thoughts on those key trade moments there are a few there that obviously is a massive get for the club, but also they are quite big losses as well, including Owies and Kennedy. But your thoughts on those two especially, but also our pick 3, if you want to add anything else onto that.
Yeah, obviously on the departures, it's always disappointing seeing players leave, and especially two guys who, they're not cult heroes, but more, good clubmen. Always put it all on the line to play for the club, and I think they've both developed really well. Obviously, Owies' story is crazy. We gave him a shot, so that's the way I look at it as well. Like, I think he owes the club in terms of we gave him that chance, and he definitely repaid us back of that. What was it, category B or category bloody C? I don't know what it was at the time, but he was a basketballer, like you said, and he hadn't played footy in 6 years, and we took the punt on him, and now he's a small forward that's being traded to the West Coast Eagles. So yeah, disappointing with those two departing. I'm very happy with Kempy staying. I touched on it before we recorded. I think he's too versatile in terms of he can play numerous positions. He can play forward of the ball and behind the ball. His manager said that he loved playing forward of the ball as well. So as well as down back. So that's really good in terms of his mentality and his role in the side. And obviously we ended up getting pick 14, and all that kind of shenanigans happened in about 45 minutes to an hour, where it was just like, what's going on here? And then we both thought, can we have a shot at pick 3? Can we have a shot? I just thought it was almost too good to be true. And then I realized, I think the Eagles had to actually get it done, because they needed Baker, and obviously the talk started happening with Freo looking at Baker. So obviously pick 3 is a massive result. I think that's a huge result, and our highest pick since Walsh.
So we're going to swing straight into the pick 3 trade. The two things that we'll touch on today is mostly we'll touch on the pick 3 trade, but also Matt Kennedy. They're probably the two big moments that happened today. Especially, I mean, I think we kind of both expected Matt Owies to get done, so we're not going to touch on too much more about that. But pick 3 trade, there's a few dot points here that I've written down, Duff, and I just think we just need to just go through a few things. So obviously West Coast received pick 12, pick 14, and Matt Owies, and we receive pick 3. Austin was determined to focus on the draft, and he has well and truly shown that he's kept his word, and he got the deal done, and now we're heading into the draft with pick 3. We walked in with pick 12 or pick 11. Like it was pick 12, and then obviously now it will be pick 3, and I think he will turn into pick 4, because obviously Levi Ashcroft should get probably will get picked up a little bit earlier. But I think the player that I think the reason why we've traded up, there must be a reason as to why we've traded so high to get this pick 3. There's one player on Nick Austin's mind that he wants in the club. So, in my opinion, and I'm sure that you're the exact same, Duff, and if there is another player that you think in your mind, there might be a player that Nick Austin has his eye on. But I think it's going to be Finn O'Sullivan, and he's a player that we are reportedly keen on if he does get through to pick 3, because he could go at pick 1. He can go at pick 2. There's probably about 6 or 7 players in that top 10 that can potentially go at pick 1, which is crazy to me because it just shows how good this draft is. But your thoughts on the whole pick 3 trade, and do you think, I mean, obviously we got the better of the deal, you would think, because we got the pick 3 back, but we also gave up pick 12, pick 14, and we were kind of pushing Matt Owies out the door. So what's your thoughts with it all? Like, do you think it's a win-win for both clubs? Do you think we got the better of it? Do you think West Coast got the better of it? Where's your head at?
Yeah, well, for me, I look at how it actually began in terms of us getting 14. So we've obviously given away 2 future first and a future second for next year, which Hawthorn on traded to for Barras in the Barras deal. So we're obviously giving away a future first. We don't have one next year, which is, do we need one? I'm not sure. Obviously, Cody Walker's we're eyeing him off. So obviously, we probably need to get the points for him at some stage next year. Obviously, that's a next year conversation. We get that 14, and with your question, I think it's an intriguing situation. I think we win the situation because I think Owies is almost just like a steak knife in the deal because he was going to get delisted anyway.
Yeah.
It was almost like a cherry on top just to help him say yes to the deal, wasn't it, really? Like, if that deal didn't happen, he probably could have got delisted, and West Coast could have ended up with him anyway as a delisted free agent. So, obviously, apart from Matt Owies, the 12 and 14, I'm 100% going for the 3. And they did it. And they did it. And it's exciting, like I said. And like you said, with Austin, his target clearly is O'Sullivan, and that's been reported. But anything can happen in drafts. Teams can, trade up, whether it's, Melbourne's got 5 and 9, which is, I think that's a clear watch. Because what happens if they try to get into the top 3, to North, maybe they offer 5 and 9 to North, which probably won't happen in terms of giving up 2. But you just never know. We didn't think we were going to get 3. So it's going to be an interesting watch. I love O'Sullivan at the club. Obviously, he's got a relation with Walshy. He's a second cousin. I think people are talking about it like he's his little brother. You know what I mean? It's like, he's like, people talk about some connection with any type of trade. Like, oh, his local pizza shop's cook is his brother's sister's dog's brother's. He's a good player. I think that's why they want him. So that'd be fantastic. And he kind of had an injury-riddled year. So, that's obviously something to watch out for. But I think that's almost made him not drop, but just not be the lock for the number 1. Because I think, in my eyes, the Tigers take Jagger Smith, because I think he played a few games in their 2s. And I just feel like sometimes when players do that, and then the club they played in the 2s with is available, they often go for him because they had the different set of eyes and get to know him as a person and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's exciting, Patto.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that's going through my mind, and I guess the question is do you think, like, what would happen if Finn O'Sullivan goes at 1? Like, I would assume that Nick Austin would think, oh, well, if he goes at 1, because it's a high possibility, because as we said, there's a lot of players that kind of in that, bracket that could go at pick 1. So there's a lot of players that could potentially go, but it just seems like there's a lot of reports going to Nick Austin. He's very keen on Finn O'Sullivan. And it was quite funny because I think Cole Toomey was the one that mentioned it through the day with watching it. Watching the live stream, and I think he meant to say that, like, there's a lot of people that, like, reckon that, like, that Walshy and Finn O'Sullivan speak, like, every day, but I don't think they speak like, no. I think everyone has it, like, those second cousins that Yeah. Speak to sometimes, like say like you meet up with them at Christmas Day or something, and then you don't
Yeah.
really speak to them until the next year's Christmas. But it's quite funny. So when he said that, I was like, yeah, I reckon it's more like that because everyone reckons they're like best mates, talking every single day. They're going down for a kick of the footy down at the park, but it's not like that whatsoever. But obviously, if he moves to the Carlton
Of
Club, it's
course.
a hell of a lot closer. But
Mm.
just one more thing on this thing, Dad. So I guess back to the question that I was asking: Is there? I mean, assuming that Jagger Smith goes at one,
Mm.
next player, whether it's Draper, but also Langford as well. Like Harvey Langford is a player that has been spoken a lot. That he could go probably pick three, but there's when a lot of clubs are kind of speaking about like whether it's like the North Melbourne and the Richmond and or like obviously Carlton as well. They're not speaking about Harvey Langford a lot. So there's a lot of players that once again
Mm.
could go at one, but they might not get picked up till seven.
Yeah.
Few players around that bracket. So if it's not Finn O'Sullivan, who would you pick? I mean, other than Jagger Smith, because you would assume that he will go at one.
Yeah.
Who else is on your mind other than Finn O'Sullivan?
Yeah, like you said, there's a few guys in there. I feel like Jagger Smith will be taken at one or two. I think we won't be able to get him, but if he is available, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, it's interesting. I think Cal Toomey's words on Sid Draper has almost got me over the line with him
Yeah,
because he finished school last year. So he's had half the year or something as a professional preparing for this year. So he hasn't been at school. You know what I mean? He's he passed school. So he's had time to develop his body and put more time into his football. So it's almost like he's turned into a pro before he's got into the system. So that's huge for me to hear. I think that's the guy we probably look at. And what I also like, I know this back to O'Sullivan, but Sid Draper would be my next pick. But if Smith or Jagger Smith's available, I don't think he will. I think he'll end up at Richmond. That's just my thinking. But with O'Sullivan, I like what I'm hearing too. That is, we don't need the guys who are getting 35 touches. We have those guys. We have Kennedy. No, not Kennedy. We don't have Kennedy. We have Walsh. We have Cripps. We have Hewitt, right? We have Chera, guys who can get the ball. O'Sullivan's more of a quality type of guy, like in terms of quality over quantity touches. We need a guy who's good at head of the ball. And he gets his 20, but his 20 feel like so impactful. And I feel like it's like similar to Elijah Hollins in a way. That he's doesn't need to have 30. You go, oh, gee, he's had a fair bit of it, but he's only had 15. But he's had so much impact ahead of the ball in a win or whatever. But yeah, it's once again, I've said it a few times. I'm very excited because it's weird to be in this situation to be in the top three, considering, let's be real, our list is pushing for a premiership.
yeah.
And if we're not saying that, then it'd be a bit worrying that we're going after a pick three. But no, I'm really happy. And it's funny, a team that's not in a rebuild's got pick three in the
Yeah.
draft. And obviously Essendon had to give away pick nine, and they're in a rebuild, which is it's just very the whole academy thing. I think shakes up that draft as well, and the whole outlook on it too.
What if there has been a team in the recent years that has done this, where they've actually gone up, whether they've been in premiership contention to a stretch?
Yeah.
I think there's a few other clubs that are in front of us, but I guess there's a lot of people that would classify us as premiership contention. But there's a lot of clubs that would have probably gone after the Dan Houston and gone really hard after
Yeah.
Dan Houston, but we were like, no, it's a strong draft. So I just wonder if there has been any clubs. Do you think there's any clubs on your mind? Probably
No,
not.
I don't know. When I think about those clubs, I'm trying to think of if Sydney or Geelong have done it where they've got a high pick when they're good, because they seem to just get sometimes a really high pick. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's in this draft as well. This we get this pick at three. It's probably a 10-year plus player at the Carlton Football Club,
Yeah.
and I'm talking the future. Like I know it's you don't want to think about it right now, but there's going to be a time where Cripps is gone, and then we're going to be thinking about our midfield of TDK, Walsh, Chera, and guys like that. Whether it's Cooper Lord coming into that spot, whether it's Ollie Hollins playing more midfield minutes and getting bigger.
Yeah.
And then you got the pick three, and that's your future. You got TDK, who, what is he, 25, 24, 25. Walsh is 24. Like this is your next block, and people go, why are we planning for that? But it's not planning. You want to bring in a guy who's impacting now, but also in 5, 6 years' time, you go, gee, this guy's a jet, and now we can afford to pay him his $1 million a year or whatever it is because Cripps is out the door, and that frees it up. So it's good thinking, and I think it's a lot to do with development, of course, but I think it's a lot to do with how our structure is in terms of the cap, because I think that's a lot of our decisions have been made based on our tight cap at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's really smart from Nick Austin, and we've kind of always said it. And Collingwood have obviously gone the other way of like they're in for the now, and it's going to be very interesting because when Tassie come into the draft, they're going to get a hell of a lot of picks. We said it last episode. There's a lot of picks that are going straight their way, and if Collingwood, they have a lot of players over 30 as
Yep.
well. Like I understand. I mean, I think we both would take 2 premierships in 10 years and then head into a rebuild. I think we both would take that. But it's more we've got the list.
Yep.
And I don't think we need to add much more because we knew what our best football was halfway through the year. So if we can add that pick 3, plus
Oh,
the Campo brothers,
yeah, yeah.
and then next year Cody Walker,
Mm.
that's extremely smart. And also, next year, the salary cap opens up. So
Yeah,
next year we can go for a big fish. We might be in premiership
yeah,
contention next year. I'm not saying we will because I feel like it's always better having a bit of a salary cap, like not having it so tight every single year. You don't
yeah.
want it tight every single year, or else the pressure comes with clubs know that like, oh, I don't think you can pay this player because we'll offer him 500K more, so you
Yeah,
can't pay him. So
yeah,
there's a lot of clubs that do that. And that's why I feel like it's always good to kind of have a bit spare because we know that we can kind of see it both ways of like we can kind of the leeway of we can pay him a little bit extra, but we don't really want to.
mm.
Be a bit like Geelong of how they have kind of they never
Yeah,
have to pay the players.
yeah,
So that's why I'm kind of interested. But I just think they've done it so well, and I think we were quite optimistic that we wanted to keep our first round pick, but to now upgrade it to pick 3,
yeah.
it's fantastic.
Mm.
And I really do wonder if it's to do with Tassie or if it's to do with the draft this year. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think there's anything going through Nick Austin thinking, oh crap, it could be because Tassie's coming in 3 years' time, or do you think it's because it's such a strong draft this year and we need a player like Finn O'Sullivan if he gets drafted?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the draft. Obviously, you got to keep in the back of your mind that Tassie are there, but by the looks of it, we're trading our futures. So
Yeah.
not too paranoid about the whole Tasmania situation. But yeah, I think it's about locking in a generational talent because
Mm.
there's probably 4 or 5 of them that they're all great, but there'd be probably a block of them, 4 or 5 of them that are destined to be like superstars of the competition. So yeah, and I think your point exactly with the salary cap. It's going to be tough because we're probably going to have we probably do have the most millionaires on the list, right? Cripps is on 1 million, Charlie's on 950, so it will get really tough. It's going to get really, really tough. And your point exactly on the mid tier players who are there. If a club comes calling like St Kilda did with Kemp, offering him double or whatever, I think it was 600 or 700 and we're only paying him, 400. There's going to be more players leave. I can guarantee it. It's more about if a club comes calling for a mid-tier player on our list, whether it is Kemp and guys like that. You know what I mean? It's just like it's clubs like North Melbourne might come knocking and go, we can offer this guy 700 or 800 a year for 4 years, but we can't do that because we've got to keep our superstars. So it's going to get really, really tight in terms of how we navigate that. And like you said, I think a few episodes ago, we've got a lot of guys out of contract next year, and it's looking like TDK the deal will get done before the end of before the start of the season. And then you got Cheras. We spoke about it off air. There's guys that are going to be, like if they're on a lot of money. Look at Zach Williams. Look at guys like that. There's no guarantee they're going to be at the club after next year. I hope they are, but there's no guarantee because, like you said, Cody Walker, and there's always other targets in the trade period, whether it's someone for cheaper than Williams. What are we paying Williams? 850 a year, 900. What happens if we go next year? Oh, someone wants Williams and they'll pay the last year of his contract and then give him an extra, and then we'll just go, oh, we'll just take a guy who can do the exact same stuff on 350, 400. Look at Blake Acres, which is a huge help in our salary cap.
And I think it just shows the club culture as well, because players like that, if they're on 850 a year and they haven't lived up to that, they get to the end of their contract and they say, well, we don't think you're worth that. Are you going to take a pay cut? Yep, because I want to stay at the club.
Yep.
So that's how you build a great culture. And I think that like that's what like a Blake Acres has done. I mean, obviously he's taken a bit less than what he was on at Fremantle, and hopefully if he signs his next contract, I think he should be paid more for his next contract, because I think he's well and truly lived up to it.
Yeah.
Even guys like Adam Chera, I think his was reported around 750 to 800K. There's been a lot of pressure on him, and heading into 2025, there's a lot of pressure on him as well. So there's a lot of players next year, and like we've mentioned it a lot. Chera, I mean, obviously Wienering's been signed. Tom DeConning's in the mix. Has Sam Walsh signed?
I think he's end of 2026.
Right.
So he's the year after, but I would think TDK will be next in line, and then it'll be Sard, Walsh, around that. And Sard's getting that age where it won't be 4 or 5 year deals. It'll be probably 2 to 3, maybe.
And then obviously Mitch McGovern as well is one of those players who I think he's still on the 800K.
Oh,
I think he re-signed.
No, it might be last year. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he may have re-signed last year, I think.
Yeah, so I hope for our sake that he's on a bit of a lower pay packet. But again, he's going to have to deliver this year. If he can't, he's had a good few years. I'm not saying that, but if he can't get his body right this year, we're not holding on to guys like that anymore. Yeah. So if he doesn't perform to a level, we've got guys like Brody Kemp and others, but I'd back Govey to do well. But there's no guarantees, and it's clear that it seems with this trade period, it's dividing all the opinions, Patto. It's dividing all the opinions. Everyone's having a go at Nick Austin. Why are we getting rid of Owies? Why are we getting rid of Kennedy? It's tough. Both of us would rather Kennedy at the club.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Let's be real here. But he's not. He's not. So he goes, we get some sort of something in return. We never get anything in return. Like I said in the past trade talk, every time a player leaves the club, we get a future like 78th rounder. You look at Setterfield, you look at Dow, you look at Stockers, you look at guys like that. We get nothing in return. So maybe that's what they were thinking. Kennedy wants to go, in a sense, to the Dogs. He's agreed. Let's do the due diligence, get him out the door, and then get something back, which was a 38. I know it's not a huge deal, but it's something. It's something. It's not like a 4th rounder that won't be even used in the draft.
Sam Petresi-Seaton.
But it's the same thing. Blokes leave. It's when you hold them on for too long. Like pretend we hold, I don't know, well, Owies was going to be out of contract. But in terms of Kennedy, you hold him for another year. He just walked to another club out of contract. So it's brutal. But I think we need to cut the shit because we need to win a premiership. If we hold up the cup in 2025, I'm not going to be standing at the G thinking, oh, what about Owies and Kennedy? Why did we get pick 3? It's not about that. They're 2 great clubmen. I wish them all the best. Nothing against them personally, but that's what this channel is for, Patto. To push and talk about our progress to the premiership.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be worrying about when we're sinking down about 184 beers out the precinct. Don't think we'll be worrying about Matt Owies and Matt Kennedy, mate.
Well, I got on the street, you mean?
No, but straight after the grade, we have to walk straight to the precinct, mate. No, but probably the one last thing I'll touch on about this before we head into obviously Matt Kennedy. It's the pressure, and I sent you a message. Now there is a little bit of pressure on the new strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
There is a bit of pressure now, isn't there? Because I think it's great because we know that our top end talent is the best in the league. In my opinion, I think it's got to be.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like you say, that we have a lot of players who are around that $1 million mark. That's great. I don't think we can keep those mid-range players that other clubs have. Which is like annoying to a stretch, but then it's like, because if one of these guys gets injured on a long-term injury, this guy who probably shouldn't be playing in a senior side like Carlton is playing for a long period of time as well. So that's why I look at it and I'm like, I really would love to keep a guy like Matt Kenny. I would love to keep a guy like Matt Owies, but their price is more than what they're getting paid for at Carlton.
Yes. Yep.
Like, I would rather these guys go to other clubs and know that they get paid for what they're worth. But now there's a bit of pressure on, say, a guy like Sam Doherty, who's been around like the injuries the past few years. Now his 2025 is probably his most important year because he needs to step up. And if not, you've got a guy like Jackson Binns waiting in the ranks as well. I'll probably put it more to like we actually have a bit of depth now because I mean, like now, like Lewis Young, kept to the club, whether Sam Binns signs a contract as well.
Yep.
We still have a bit of depth, but I guess just if say, I mean, like, let's touch wood, but if Cripps goes down, you've got Cooper Lord coming straight in.
Yeah.
Usually that might be Matt Kennedy. So it's just a few things to think about. Like, once again, touch wood, Jesse Motlop might go down. Then I have to rely on Corey Durden, not Matt Owies. So there's just a few things that, I mean, I don't want to be the downer in the situation because I think it's a great outcome.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of pressure, but I think pressure makes diamonds. Everyone says that. So we kind of need to take a risk, but also pick three. Like, there's kind of both things that I see be like, yeah, it's really good, but it's also like something that we might need to think about. But obviously Nick Austin knows a hell of a lot more than what I do. But heading into Matt Kennedy trade Duff, and I guess the thing that we'll obviously touch on is we obviously gave up Matt Kennedy and we received pick 38. And just one more comment, a sad loss for the club, but after over just a week ago, receiving the Best Clubman Award, which is a thing that is obviously quite highly regarded within the club. He's obviously a very well-liked player in the club, but I think, as you say a lot, it's good that the club gave him the, I guess, the approval to go elsewhere to find his way to play some midfield time. And it's bloody interesting that he found his way to Western Bulldogs. In my opinion, I think he's going to be playing in the exact same role as Jack McRae was, and he's half forward anyway. So, the deal's done. He chose to go to the Dogs, and now he has to fight against Bontempelli, Liberatore, Trelaw, Richards, up against Cripps, Chera, Walsh, and Hewitt. So I don't know. I think he probably will be in the exact same situation. But your thoughts on the trade as a whole? Do you think it's a win-win for both clubs? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would have loved to keep him. Clearly, the club wanted to keep him, but in that role that he necessarily doesn't want to play in. Yeah, it's a tough situation, and it's got to help your player out because he wants the opportunity, and also probably help the salary cap relief, and also think about how we can cover it. And clearly, pick 3 is going to come in and add to that midfield depth. Let's be real; he'll come in and slot right in. You said with Cooper Lord, so clearly they've gone, we can probably afford to do it. And if if we can cover that half forward role, whether it's with Jack Silvani, Ashton Moyer, players like that, and Liam McMahon is a name that I think we should be picking up in the preseason draft or rookie draft, whatever. I think he should be definitely training with the club, and then we pick him up in the preseason because I think he's that half forward type. He's 198. You get him for nothing, Patto. It's a dart at the board. You just throw it at the board and it might work. It might work. So maybe that's what they're thinking. But yeah, like you said, it's he just got the best clubman and then he's out the door. It wasn't really looking likely that he was going to head out, but I think it was more some clubs waiting to see about their list spots and how they can fit a player like him into their side. And clearly the Dogs have spoken to him and he's really happy to go there. So clearly what they've said and what they've kind of, not promised, but kind of, directed in a sense structurally. He's a part of their plans. So like you said, it's not our issue. If he doesn't get a game, then maybe he should have stayed at Carlton and just been happy with playing every week and playing half forward.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Bevo won't give him the opportunities that I think Carlton would have. So yeah, I sent you a message about it, so I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I thought like I would share it to to the viewers watching, and it's just I think he obviously was one of 3 players to play every single game at the Carlton Football Club this year. So he's obviously got the security of he knows that he will play senior football next year if he was to play for Carlton. But now he's chosen to go to the Dogs, and they've just lost Jack McRae. They've just lost Bailey Smith, but Bailey Smith didn't play all of this year. Jack McRae was playing the exact same role, so I don't know what role he's taking.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at it. I'm like, I mean, as you said, it's not our problem now, but I'm just so intrigued to see how that's going to play out, because I think he will be in the exact same role as what he will be at Carlton. And maybe he sees it more as like, yeah, I think I can challenge Ed Richards more than a George. Maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm just intrigued. But as you said, I don't think we like the Dogs very much. So it's just saying so yeah, probably at least it's not Collingwood or St Kilda. If it's Collingwood or St Kilda, I'm not. I would say, mate, good riddance. But Dogs, nah, they're kind of irrelevant anyway. So, but your thoughts on that, just quickly?
Yeah, I think on his role, I was just thinking about it then. Maybe they, with Daniel going, I know he didn't play every game. He was sub. Maybe they shift Richards back again, play him at half back, and then they have a spot for Kennedy there, which I would probably almost do, because I think Kennedy in the middle would be quite nice with that midfield group. I think. I think he's better than some of their players they got. I think. He's not a superstar. He's not going to set the world on fire for him, but he's 27. He'd probably have more output than McRae right now. So it's probably an upgrade for him. Let's be real. McRae is, in the past has been a great footballer, but I think his best is probably past him. And that's not being mean. He's 30. He's on double the cash Kennedy's on. So I know this is not Dogs chat, but they're cutting half of his, I think he's probably half his salary, or just above half of McRae's salary. They've signed Kennedy on a 3-year deal, so he'll be at the Dogs for 4 years, adding on to his year, obviously, that he already had signed. So I think it's a win for them, and we free up some space and have a kind of different dynamic. And what I like about it is that we know that Hewitt's that guy in there. That not him and Kennedy. It always felt like they couldn't fit together. So, and we always talked about our pace in our midfield, and clearly pick 3 will add some pace, and just some different dynamic in there, because obviously Harvey Langford's a big one. I don't think we need a player like him. He's a bigger type. We've got Cripps, we've got Hewitt, so we don't need that. I think we need a Jagger Smith or a Finn O'Sullivan, which would be fantastic. I'll be jumping out of my skin on draft night if he isn't picked and our selection's about to come through, and I'll have that jersey swap ready for socials.
Imagine if he is available at pick 4 if Levi Ashcroft gets picked up and we don't pick him.
Yeah, well, what we say is we just trust Nick Olsen.
I reckon the only thing I'll be happy with is like Finn O'Sullivan, who's gonna Ethan Duffy, he's all right.
He'd be a bust.
I reckon it would just be a surprise. Like, I would love to have like a vision in you, and you'd be like, "What the fuck? I'm on the screen.
I'm not ready to fucking play."
We are, but no. But just quickly, I guess one more thing about the McKenny and obviously the Ed Richards situation.
Yeah,
just has got as much right to say, well, I've been pretty good in the midfield, haven't I?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think he would much rather play senior football than be pushed out, because at the end of the day, it's down to Beveridge and what he thinks. But I actually like that, because I think he's a really halfback. Well, and I think he can cover that Caleb Daniel role perfectly. So, like when you said that, like I'm just like, yeah, that's actually a good point. So I think
that might be the plan. Maybe that's why Kennedy's opened it up. Maybe they're going, we're putting Richards back. We're putting whoever rolls through there, some of their irrelevant players like Garcia or whoever. Maybe they're coming out of the midfield and you're going in Kennedy, and he's got the experience. So good on him. But when it hits 2025, I couldn't give a rat's ass.
Yep, no, exactly right. But Daf, I guess that is obviously the final segment we will touch on for this episode. It's obviously a little bit of a quicker episode for Trade Talk, because I think I've touched on a lot of things in the past few episodes, and I thought it was probably best. We thought it was probably best to come out and just do an episode straight after the deadline day for trade period. But Daf, before we wrap up the episode, is there anything else you would like to touch on before we pretty much say sayonara to our trade period and head into draft?
Yeah, we always talk about trade talk, and like prior, we always build it up a little bit, me and you. But Yeah, no, it's good to just get it done and over with, and it's been a really, really good result. A result I was not expecting whatsoever in terms of pick 3. I don't think anyone was expecting it, but clearly a massive result for the club. They're all in on this draft and they want a superstar, so I'm happy with the direction they're taking it. And yeah, well, we've done draft previews in the past, so I think this could be the most exciting one because we haven't had a pick this high, I don't reckon, since 2018 in terms of Walsh at pick 1. He was the last top 5 pick I think we had. So, maybe
Yeah.
not.
No. Oh,
No, he is. He
2019?
is.
What was 2019? That was
No,
what?
that was Kemp and Philp.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah.
yeah,
Walsh was the last one. Yeah.
yeah. So that'll be exciting. And maybe we, make use of pick 38. Maybe we look at a player around there. But I feel like, the Campo boys, and then we can just figure it out from there.
Yeah, like even the Campo boys, like we haven't even spoken about them. I mean,
Yeah.
and obviously we'll try and
Yeah.
keep that for the draft. That's what we probably both wanted to try and do. But yeah, they're going to be players, and whether like the other twin who might not be picked up in the national draft, whether we do that as a rookie draft, not too sure. But that's going to be very interesting to see how that all goes. But obviously we'll try and touch on that a lot more in the draft preview, Duff. But is that all you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's been a good trade talk with you, mate.
Yeah, mate. But obviously, to every single blue bagger out there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel, but also get around our podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Music, whether it's Amazon Music, whether it's a few others out there, Duff Boy. I need to get those actually down, Pat, and know exactly where we are on, but also get around our socials. We're both trying to do a lot around that. So make sure to get around that, especially over the off season, because the draft period, the draft when the players come in, we obviously will try and keep our eye around that and try and upload some content. But to you, Daffy boy, I don't have the scarf today because it's a bit hot, so I'll take the scarf off. But to you, Daffy boy, and to every single blue bagger out there, up the baggers.